What about the children who don't speak yet? How are they supposed to tell you they're sad if they don't have the words? It's one of the most common questions in early emotional development, and almost nobody answers it well. So today we will. Here's the mistake almost every parenting resource makes. It treats emotional intelligence as something you teach with words, phrases to say, sentences to model. But a 14-month-old, an 18-month-old, even plenty of 2- and 3-year-olds don't have the words yet, and won't for a while. That doesn't mean they're not communicating. It means they're communicating in a different language. The language of the body. Clenched fist. A stiffened spine. Eyes that won't meet yours. A pitch of cry that changes half a second before the meltdown actually lands. Long before toddlers can name a feeling, they show it. Researchers call this interoception, the sense of what's happening inside your own body, and it develops months, sometimes years, before expressive language catches up. Your toddler's nervous system is already fluent. Yours is the one that needs the lesson. So today isn't about teaching your toddler 5 phrases. It's about 5 things you can do, starting today, no vocabulary required on their end, to build the foundation emotional intelligence stands on, long before a single word is spoken. Way 1. Read the body before the word. The first skill isn't teaching your toddler anything. It's you learning to read what their body is already telling you. 3 cues to watch for. The held breath right before a meltdown lands. A half-second pause that feels almost like a system reboot. The frozen stillness of fear, where a toddler who's usually in motion suddenly goes rigid, sometimes with wide, unblinking eyes. And the bouncing, fluttering hands of excitement or overstimulation, which can look almost identical to each other from the outside. Here's a real scenario. You're at a birthday party, and your 18-month-old goes quiet and still in the middle of the noise. It's tempting to read that as calm. It's often the opposite. It's a nervous system that's hit its ceiling and is bracing, not relaxing. The stillness is the warning, not the reassurance. The common mistake here is waiting for the cry to start paying attention. By the time a toddler is crying, they're already in the deepest part of the wave. You've missed the earlier, quieter signals that would have let you step in sooner and more gently. Way 2. Narrate the feeling, not just the behavior. This is the single highest leverage habit for a nonverbal toddler. Naming what you observe out loud in real time as it's happening. Not stop that. Not even what's wrong. Which assumes a level of self-reporting your toddler doesn't have yet. Instead, I see your hands are in fists. That looks like frustration. Or, your whole body went stiff just now. That looks like it scared you. You're not expecting them to repeat it back to you. That's the part most parents get wrong. They narrate once, get no response, and assume it didn't work. But you're not testing recall. You're building the neural pathway between a physical sensation and a word, so that later, sometimes months later, when language does arrive, the word is already wired to the feeling instead of arriving as a blank slate. This is called affect labeling, and it's one of the most replicated findings in emotional development research. It doesn't just teach vocabulary for later. It measurably helps regulate the nervous system in the moment, even in children who can't yet respond in words. Simply naming the feeling accurately and calmly lowers physiological arousal. A common mistake: narrating in a tone that matches the intensity of the moment. If your toddler is escalated and you narrate in an equally escalated voice, you're not offering a calm anchor, you're adding fuel. The words matter less than the steadiness underneath them. Way 3. Teach a few simple signs. You don't need a full sign language course, and you don't need to be fluent in anything. 3 or 4 consistent gestures, for mad, sad, happy, and scared. Give a toddler something they can do with their hands before they can do it with their mouth. Baby sign research shows toddlers as young as 8 to 12 months can reliably use a handful of consistent gestures, well before verbal speech is reliable. Often a full 6 to 8 months earlier than their first spoken words for the same concepts. The gesture becomes a real bridge, not a party trick. How to actually start. Pick one sign, just one. Use it yourself every single time you name that feeling out loud, for at least 2 to 3 weeks before adding a second. Consistency matters more than the number of signs you know. A toddler exposed to 4 signs used inconsistently will learn slower than one exposed to a single sign used reliably. A real scenario. Your toddler starts using the mad sign on their own 3 weeks in a moment where you didn't prompt it at all. Maybe when a sibling takes a toy. That's the marker that it's working. It's not about them signing on command. It's about them reaching for it unprompted, because it's become a genuine tool instead of a trick you taught them. Way 4. Co-regulate before you teach. Here's the order almost every parent gets backwards, myself included in the early days. We try to teach the lesson in the middle of the storm. But a dysregulated nervous system, yours or theirs, cannot learn anything while it's dysregulated. Not a word. Not a sign. Nothing. Co-regulation means your calm becomes their calm first, before any teaching happens. Practically that looks like 3 things in this order. Slow your own breathing first, visibly and audibly, because toddlers pick up on breath rate faster than tone of voice. Lower your voice. Not to a whisper which can feel eerie, but to something noticeably slower and quieter than the moment calls for. And get physically close if they'll let you. Not to restrain, but to offer your regulated body as a reference point for theirs. This is the foundation Gottman's research on emotion coaching points to again and again. Connection before correction every single time. But it matters even more before language exists to do the correcting with. You cannot talk a pre-verbal toddler down. You can only co-regulate them down. The common mistake is trying to teach the sign or the word in the exact peak of the meltdown, then getting frustrated when it doesn't work. It's not that the tool failed. It's that it was offered at a moment when no learning was physiologically possible. Save the lesson for the calm that follows, not the storm itself. A real scenario. Your toddler is mid-meltdown on the kitchen floor. The instinct is to start narrating and signing right away. Instead, sit down, breathe audibly, say almost nothing, and simply be a calm, steady presence for 90 seconds. The teaching moment comes after, once their body has come back down, not during. Way 5. Use faces and colors as a bridge. Simple emotion cards, a handful of faces, a handful of colors. Give toddlers a way to point instead of speak. Show me how you feel, is a question a 14-month-old can answer with a finger, long before they can answer it with a sentence. It's not about getting the right answer, and it's not a test. It's about practicing the underlying act, checking in with the body and finding an external match for an internal state. That exact skill, repeated hundreds of times over months, becomes the ability to say, "I feel sad," instead of just falling apart years down the line. How to introduce this without it feeling forced. Keep 3 or 4 cards on the fridge at their height, and use them yourself first. Point to one when you're describing your own feeling. "I feel like this one today." So they see it modeled as a normal low-stakes part of daily life before you ever ask them to use it. What parents ask next? A few follow-up questions that usually come up once parents start trying this. What if my toddler ignores all of this completely? That's normal and expected, especially in the first few weeks. You're not looking for an immediate response. You're building a pathway that shows up later, sometimes suddenly, sometimes weeks after you'd almost stopped noticing you were doing it. What if I get the feeling wrong when I narrate it? You will sometimes, and that's fine. Naming frustration, when it was actually fear, doesn't undo the exercise. Your toddler isn't grading your accuracy. They're absorbing that big feelings get names and get met with calm, not that you have to be a mind reader. Does this work the same way for every child? Roughly, though pace varies a lot. Some toddlers pick up signs in days, others take months, and temperament plays a real role. The sequence matters more than the timeline. Body awareness, then narration, then signs, then co-regulation as the constant thread underneath all of it. None of this requires your toddler to say a single word back to you. That's the part worth remembering most. You're not waiting for language to start teaching emotional intelligence. You're building the foundation it will eventually stand on. One clenched fist, one narrated feeling, one calm 90 seconds at a time. If a topic like this one is something you're working through, drop it in the comments. It genuinely shapes what we make next. One more thing before you go. If today's video hit close to home, and you're genuinely wondering whether what you're seeing goes beyond typical nonverbal development, that's a different conversation than this video can have. Mindscape London is a team of accredited specialists offering autism and ADHD assessments and post-diagnosis support for children and families, following NICE guidelines. They're based in the UK, so this one's most useful if you're there. But if that's something you've been considering, the link is in the description below. Subscribe for more real research-backed tools for raising emotionally intelligent kids. From their very first cry, all the way to their first full sentence.